Coming up on Inside Lehman, your food is more than prepared. Sometimes it's engineered. We'll take a closer look at the GMO debate.
Plus, chronic stress takes its toll on the body, but smart decisions can turn things around. We'll show you how.
And how much do we really understand about dyslexia? We'll introduce you to the latest research on learning strategies for people with dyslexia.
All this, plus a look at the economics of education and why art makes such a difference in people's lives, especially at a young age. So sit back and relax because Inside Lehman starts now. Hello and welcome to Inside Lehman. I'm Janitza Medina.
And I'm Miguel Gallardo.
Do you actually know what's in the foods that you eat? In some cases, there is much more than processing and preparation.
We now see more situations in which foods are genetically modified for a number of reasons. Inside Lehman's Arachi Brown takes a closer look.
This is one of the hottest topics for debate among nutritionists and consumers alike. While some of our foods are still grown on farms, it is often far different than from previous generations. Some of those farms still exist, but other products may come from huge factory-like environments in which scientists are trying to maximize growth. Do people really know if they're eating anything that contains GMOs, genetically modified organisms? On the steps of New York City Hall, legislators and demonstrators gathered to say there may be significant threats with some GMO usage, and that consumers have a right to know what's out there.
GMOs are genetically modified food ingredients, typically in plants like corn and soy, sugar beets, and they're ingredients that have been genetically modified in a laboratory that don't occur in nature. So sometimes you're splicing in bacteria or different types of chemical resistance genes. So it allows the companies who produce GMO crops to douse them with pesticides, and it's really a form of industrial agriculture. And most consumers don't realize that they're in the food.
Assembly member Linda Rosenthal says she is also concerned about the ways in which genetically modified foods may be grown and processed.
GMO foods are sprayed with a lot of pesticides. Even though they're supposed to be resistant, you know, all things resistance ebbs, and then you have to use more pesticides. So that's part of the problem with GMOs.
It's reasonable to assume that many people are unaware of genetically modified foods. Professor Juliana Mante finds that the choices are particularly limited for consumers who live in so-called food deserts or food swamps.
So it might be geographic access, they're just too far to get to the supermarket or any other healthy food options, or it could be economic access where the food is just too expensive. The opposite of a food desert, or kind of not opposite but consistent with a food desert, is something we call a food swamp, which means that they have mainly access to fast food restaurants and little bodegas that might not sell fresh produce and things of that nature. So you want to have access to healthy food, farmers markets or health food stores or major supermarkets that have a wide variety of food that you can have a choice to get low salt or low fat or low sugar, and fresh food, natural is better.
Improving access to healthy foods and increasing public knowledge reduce the risk of chronic illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. The Lehman College Nutrition and Health Promoters Clubs are working on spreading the word.
We need some change to take place in the way that our food is produced, and the way that needs to happen is from the ground up, through community gardens and through your own personal gardens. Do it in windowsills if you'd like. Grow some herbs, fresh herbs, and cook at home.
Community gardens provide fresh and affordable foods, reducing the strain on a family food budget, improving the lives of the people who tend those gardens. Consuelo Hernandez and other farmers market owners are quick to point out their produce is not genetically modified.
My mom on a mission to keep my child safe, healthy, and to help spread this along to other moms as well. Show them ways that I have kept my child healthy. I stay as close to nature as possibly. I don't eat processed foods. I stay away from fast foods. I believe strongly in eating single ingredient foods.
Ms. Hernandez's son, Zeus, has picked up on the message, taking after his mom.
The only tricky part is to know how to eat organic. You should always eat organic, non-GMO, and gluten-free. Those are the three things that keep you healthy.
Out of the mouths of babes. It's food for thought. Arachi Brown, Inside Lehman.
Stress takes its toll, but it can be more than daily fatigue. Prolonged stress may manifest itself in many ways, including physical injury and illness. Inside Lehman's Brittany Hamlet Concepcion takes a look at the causes of stress and how stress can affect you.
We live in the city that never sleeps, which often means neither do we. People hustle and bustle through life and work, leading some to feel overwhelmed and overworked with little relaxation. We describe this as being stressed. Dr. Alan Kluger says stress covers a wide range of situations. It may include anything from environmental stressors such as extreme cold to more traumatic situations such as a soldier being injured in combat.
And other stresses can be purely psychological. The stress of trying to make it through your undergraduate years. If you go to graduate school, trying to get through graduate school, trying to keep your family together and fed and housed, taking care of ill children and parents.
You could call it distress. That's when you start to see the negative consequences, can be both psychological and physical consequences.
It's not always possible to remove oneself from stressful situations, but recognizing critical signs of stress and trying to limit self-destructive patterns can make a difference.
I lost weight, but in a drastic way, so it wasn't good. So it would be at 16 one day, wake up, be a 10, then be a 4, and then be a 0 within a month's time span.
I had to go through interventions and everything, of course, and the doctors told me it's because of your stress, because they couldn't find anything else.
The consequences of prolonged chronic stress can lead to a variety of health conditions, including migraines, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, depression, asthma, autoimmune disorders, and even memory loss, which can lead to Alzheimer's disease. There is no doubt that stress is a silent killer, but there are ways to protect your body.
Number 1, stop making excuses. Number 2, you need to take initiative immediately. Number 3, you need to be willing to make an intentional sacrifice in order to improve your health. Number 4, there's no shortcuts. Number 5, once you find a plan that works, you need to stick to it. Number 6, if you did something in the past and it didn't work, you need to forgive yourself or forgive whoever did or did not do something to you so you can move past that. Number 7, you have to realize that endurance is necessary. Not every day in the process of getting well is going to be a bowl of cherries. And number 8 is you need to put yourself in a position of accountability in order to get yourself to that success range.
So is it possible to reverse some acute and chronic symptoms? There have been studies that show a person who experienced stress-induced conditions can mentally and physically recover if and when the cause is removed. They reach a point at which they can put the stress in the past.
Usually we're pretty well able to handle what life throws at us.
But not everything can be reversed if it has taken years to get there. Preventing the damage is far better than trying to fix it. Areas of the brain such as the hippocampus, where memory is stored, can actually shrink due to chronic exposure to stress-induced hormones like cortisol.
It's believed, perhaps even in normal aging, that elderly who are exposed to a lot of stress and have circulating cortisol at high levels, which you can measure in a variety of ways, they're the ones who have shrinkage of the hippocampus, and they're the ones who have poorer memory scores. And some people believe that it may even exacerbate the start of more serious memory impairments associated with dementias like Alzheimer's disease.
Perhaps one of the best defenses is to find ways to care for one's body. Exercise, meditation, cognitive relaxation techniques, and balanced nutrition can help, since mental health in many ways is dependent on physical health. Brittany Hamlet Concepcion, Inside Lehman.
Still ahead on Inside Lehman, there's so much more that we now know about dyslexia. We'll introduce you to all the different ways that people learn and achieve.
Plus, education is critical, but it isn't always an easy road to travel. We'll look at the best ways to go to school without going broke. And we'll take you to a community organization that helps make art a vital part of the lives of young people. Welcome back to Inside Lehman. I'm Miguel Gallardo.
And I'm Janitza Medina.
Imagine sitting next to someone and realizing that he or she is struggling to read or write. While some might assume that this indicates a lack of intelligence or education, it might be dyslexia. Dyslexia and intelligence are not connected.
Inside Lehman's Angelica Carino introduces us to experts who are studying the ways in which people with dyslexia learn differently.
Dyslexia is a common learning disability among children. It is a long-term condition that occurs in people of all backgrounds and intellectual levels. It may even develop during a person's adult life. Many people are very private about their dyslexia because they are afraid of being judged or marginalized. In elementary school, reading comprehension is a common exercise in which children are expected to read a passage of a text and answer questions about it. It is an essential skill in one's academic and professional life. However, if a child is having trouble successfully reading or writing, then the child should be evaluated. Dyslexia often has a serious impact on the lives of children and adults. Professor Peggy Connor says it's important to identify the condition and its causes.
Children with dyslexia have difficulty with accurate and fluent word reading, difficulty with decoding new words that they come across, and difficulty with spelling.
Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin or in some cases a genetic condition. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities.
We have areas which are for speech motor, we have areas that are important for vision, and we have areas that are important for hearing. And there's a part right here which is an area that integrates all three. And we think that for people with dyslexia, the problem is the connections among these different areas.
Diagnosing dyslexia requires a series of tests for phonological awareness. Phonological awareness involves the detection and manipulation of sounds and words. People with dyslexia learn the words, but at a much slower rate than the typical learners.
People with dyslexia often have to spend hours and hours and hours memorizing words and memorizing what they look like, and working very diligently with reading specialists, with speech-language pathologists to try to learn how to read.
Leslie Grubler, the Director of Clinical Education and Clinical Services at Lehman College, works alongside graduate student clinicians. The clinicians are supervised by clinical educators who are certified in licensed speech-language pathologists or audiologists.
We do have several clinics that could meet the needs of a child with dyslexia, one of them being our literacy, our reading and writing clinic, where we work with children anywhere from 5 years of age to adulthood.
The nonprofit organization Everyone Reading Incorporated is another source of support. Accommodations help level the playing field so a person with learning disabilities like dyslexia can find more opportunities to successfully achieve his or her goals. Patara Japay, a law student and freelance consultant who was evaluated and diagnosed with dyslexia in the 3rd grade, has been able to succeed academically and professionally, even though she was told that would be unlikely.
For me, I was a student that was told I was never going to be able to graduate high school, let alone become a productive member of society. I entered the 7th grade on a 2nd grade reading level that does not include fluency or decoding.
Even though common misconceptions caused Patara Japay to be told repeatedly that she wouldn't make it, she kept pursuing her goals with the help of loved ones in specialized education intervention. Japay graduated with honors from Adelphi University and then became chief of staff for a junior state assembly member.
Every step of the way, there was this, well, how are you going to do it, right? Like, there are plenty of people who are dyslexic, but there isn't this turnkey of knowledge. There isn't this, this is how I did it. And so for me, it was being very open about my learning disability and knowing what I needed to be successful.
The first step to understanding dyslexia is to dispel misconceptions. Individuals with dyslexia are able to succeed in a classroom or in professional fields with specific accommodations that best work for them. Patara Japay is a perfect example. Despite her severe dyslexia, she did not give up. Angelica Cariño, Inside Lehman.
In today's world, higher education has proven to be a necessity, but the realities of paying for it may present difficulties that will affect a person for years to come. Inside Lehman's Brianna Roller examines the economics of education.
As we know, many employers require that any prospective employee have a college degree. But what happens when going for and receiving that degree becomes way more than just financially stressful? It's no secret that the cost of higher education has dramatically increased over the last few decades. Studies published by the New York Times and the Huffington Post found that college tuition has quadrupled since 1978. According to a study done by the College Board, in the 2014 to 2015 school year alone, there was a 3.7% increase at private institutions and a 2.9% increase at public institutions.
I think it's a big stressor for anybody who wants to pursue higher education. The cost of education is increasing because of the conditions of the market. Many people are demanding for education, so that places a constraint and a burden because people have to pay more money for that.
In order to tackle the rising costs of higher education efficiently, there are a couple of routes that students may take. For many, the first option is filing the free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as FAFSA. After a prospective student files his or her application, the student receives a notification about the expected family contribution, in which the government calculates how much financial aid a college should provide and how much loan debt that student should have. Cal Cheney, a college financial aid advisor, says paying attention is critical.
The important thing to realize with this process is the demand for aid exceeds the supply. So while financial aid is supposed to go to the people who need it most, it goes to those who are savviest about navigating the process to apply for assistance. So you need in part to be your own advocate and not assume that if you just fill out the forms and send them in, somebody's going to take care of you.
Cheney is the author of Paying for College Without Going Broke. His business, Campus Consultants, works to provide families with financial advice and helps parents to fill out the necessary FAFSA forms. This means developing strategies that are intended to get students the most aid for which they are entitled. However, sometimes students and their parents bypass aid from colleges and opt to finance their education through commercial loans and monthly payments. This can be expensive.
The psychological burden of being of having to pay money for education and paying for other things for families, and so is very important. Also, time constraints. Many times students have to go to work, then come to school, So the time that they can allocate for assignments and some other stuff, some other things that they have to do throughout their careers is constrained by the time.
For Lissy Dominguez, who came to the United States from the Dominican Republic, having to pay out of pocket has not been easy.
Every single month spared almost $700 for my tuition. For some people, it may be something easy to have, and maybe some people have told me that I shouldn't be complaining that much because they have like over $20,000 tuition worth, and I only have less than 10 grand, but money is money at the end of the day, and it's still like a lot of money for me to take into account, and it's a lot of pressure on my dad.
Nationwide, some students face tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt after completing their degree. According to studies done by Time magazine, young adults between the ages of 24 and 35 can ruin their chances of purchasing property or a car because they have too large of a loan to pay back. These same adults can also face health issues such as depression, anxiety, and high blood pressure when paying back large amounts of debt becomes overwhelming.
So if you're worried about how you're going to finance your education without suffering excessive or financial stress, start with FAFSA. But remember, it's not as simple as one might think.
The answer to every financial aid question is, it depends. Because it's very personalized, it's also very school specific. And the problem a lot of families and students have is they rely on well-intentioned friends, family members who may have had a child going to another school. And while also family circumstances may seem similar, they're rarely identical.
I think everything can be done if you organize your time. Of course, that implies sometimes sacrificing some hours of sleep, sometimes not going to family reunions.
Learn everything as much as you can, because if you don't, then you may end up being stuck. You may have to transfer schools, even if you don't want to.
And even though all of it may be stressful, completing your degree will pay off in the end.
While staying focused on your studies is the key goal, making smart financial decisions can have an enormous impact on your future. Brianna Roller, Inside Lehman.
Art enriches our lives, whether we experience iconic works from the past or modern art in electronic media. But think about how much we would be missing without art. Inside Lehman's Jay Carter shows us why the arts are important and how society can be intentional about making sure kids have access to it.
The first things to be cut from schools when money is an issue are often the arts programs. Parents and children might not recognize the impact immediately. Children lose an avenue for self-expression and for learning to think creatively or how to interpret other people's work. At Trinity Episcopal Church, local Bronx children are experiencing art with a hands-on approach. If not for such programs, these young people might not have the opportunity to be exposed to different aspects of the arts.
Squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, up.
Veronica Mason is an artist who enjoys creating elaborate ceramic sculptures. She received her Master of Fine Arts degree from Lehman College. Miss Mason says she enjoys giving back to the community. That's why she goes to Trinity Church to teach the students how to make pottery. Enjoying the benefits and fulfillment of having the arts as an integral part of her life, she wants today's students to have the opportunity to experience that also.
There are many other reasons why I see it's important that I should work with them to try to leave something that I have achieved myself and pass it on to them. Maybe not all, but one or two of them may be able to reflect back on this and go further with it.
You can see them grow, the confidence level as it improves, being more apt to speak up, realizing their importance. They're not just one of the pack or one of the group or maybe the fifth child in a family. They are someone. They have someone to offer.
There's more than meets the eyes when it comes to the arts. People gain so much more than just artistic skills. Their confidence grows, creativity increases, and their creative skills are developed.
It opened up my eyes. It opened up my world to see what was out there, and that there are other things besides being here in the South Bronx. This is one of the poorest congressional districts in the country, so there's a lot of crime and so forth, and so it really opened my eyes and my world to see that there was a different world out there.
Putting clay in the hands of children from the community can lead to expanded thinking that goes beyond the arts. A child may find his or her creative voice and then become more comfortable with embracing that newfound creativity.
It is my greatest pleasure to work with these kids who are less fortunate in the poorest congressional district in the South Bronx, to teach them or expose them to another way of being able to handle or take care of themselves in respect to staying off the street, in respect to learning a new skill, and also how to function with others.
Their outlook on life is a little different. Like, they're excited about going to a museum. They're excited now about going to college and taking pottery again in college. It just opens up so many doors for them, being exposed to a program like this.
So, what can parents do to help their children appreciate and interpret art?
I would say don't hold your children back. Try to find, by talking to people, by allowing your children to experiment and to be exposed to a different culture. Because a lot of parents may say, no, you're not going to be able to do anything with that. How are you going to make money with this? But I think it's really helping them to be creative.
It's important to share that respect out into the community, and that's what the Trinity does in this program, to respect these kids that are in the local schools, to give them a chance to be seen and heard and do something that's important and real.
You can actually put it down here, and you can do this, because you want to form a bottom.
As far back as anyone can remember, the arts have played an integral role in how people have developed, grown, and thrived. Communities that have access to programs like this one are able to give their children additional opportunities to succeed.
Wedge like this. Wedge, come on. Everybody wedging.
Arts programs enable the students to develop as well-rounded individuals who can thrive in many different environments. While they may never perform in an opera house or earn a living producing ceramic pottery, they will use the skills they've acquired through the arts to enhance whatever they'd like to do. Jay Carter, Inside Lehman.
That's all we have time for. We would like to thank our reporters, our crew, and the rest of the team for all of their fine work.
If you would like to see more, look for us on YouTube by searching for Inside Lehman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Inside Lehman.